Hi, well, welcome to Retired People's Club. It's Monday, the 26th of November. Goodness me, it's less than a month until Christmas. Isn't that an awful thought? I hope you've all done all your Christmas shopping, and like me, I would imagine probably not, I don't know. But to be honest with you, Christmas is kind of, well, what can I say? Can I say it doesn't do much for me? Would you excuse me if I said it doesn't do much for me? Because honestly, guys, it never has done much for me, I'm afraid. And it's one of those things that I think most of us, when we get to a certain age, we stop believing in Santa Claus. And for the next 60 or 70 years, we go on not believing in Santa Claus. Okay, well, what are we talking about today? Today, on Retired People's Club, I want to get you on board on a couple of questions, really. Quite an interesting one, because we in this country, we've just got over, I hope we've just got over Brexit. To be honest with you, I don't know about you, but I am utterly bored, rigid with Brexit. I don't believe in any of our politicians. I was watching a lady on the news today, a little old lady somewhere in England, and she came across with something that I thought was deeply sensible, and she said, well, I don't trust any of them, really. I don't trust any of the buggers, because as far as I can see, they do what they do. And I think that's deeply true. deeply true. Politicians tend to be the guys who I think, honestly, don't do much for anybody. They try, the big thing that most of them do is try to get re-elected in 4 years' time, so they keep on the gravy train. There you go, that's my opinion. But there you go, excuse me having a slurp of coffee because I've got a slightly sore throat today. It's due to lack of whiskey, although I don't actually drink whiskey. What do I want to talk about today? The thing I want to discover, and this is kind of discovering stuff from your good selves, the thing I want to try and discover is about people who are pensioners being hard up. And I don't mean hard up as in, God, I haven't got 10 bob to spend this week. What I mean is people who have to make their minds up whether they are going to actually switch on the central heating, or whether they're going to have a decent meal, or switch on whatever form of heating they happen to have, or have a decent meal. Is there a lot of this about? I very much tend to think yes, there is. And I've got a couple of one recent article to show you, which I think kind of tells the story, and perhaps I'll put a link to this at the end of this clip so you can see it for yourself. But this guy, I think, is saying the right thing. So what he's saying is pensioners are actually forced to decide whether they want to stay warm and stay fed, eat or not eat, stay warm or freeze and eat. You know, this is really, I think this is awful, to be honest with you. And down the page here, we'll just go down and have a little look down the page. Down the page here, this guy said it's or the first thing he said was that 40% of pensioners are actually in something called, are you ready for this? Fuel poverty. What fuel poverty seems to mean is that pensioners are spending more than, or a lot of pensioners are spending more than 10% of their income on actually heating their homes. So if your income is, I don't know, £1,000 a month, so let's say you're on a state pension, you've got a little bit of extra, you're on £1,000 a month if you're lucky. You've got your own house, so you don't have the bills of renting a place, but you've got to spend £100, at least £100 out of your pension every month, out of your income, to actually keep your home warm. Good afternoon, young Alan, nice to see you there. And that strikes me as being, I think the word I'd like to use is bloody awful. Isn't that awful? I mean, I live in a flat with my partner Dot, and our heating bill, I suppose, is over 100 a month. Not much more than over 100 a month, but it is. But if I were on my own, living on the pension, the state pension that I get currently, it would be more than 10% of my state pension. So what the hell is that about? And this guy, in fact, is just saying very carefully and quite nicely that we need to do something about it. In Scotland, 4 out of 10 people, he says, are in fuel poverty. 4 out of 10 people, old age pensioners, who have worked their butts off most of their lives, are actually having to make the decision as to whether they want to eat or they want to be warm. So that's this afternoon's question, really. I'd like to hear from people who experience fuel poverty, who actually do have to make that decision whether to turn the heating on today or whether to leave it off because it will save, I don't know, X quid. And Alan, you pay £90 a month. Oh really? Oh my God. That's a lot of money. But for a couple, you're lucky because you're on, a couple's pension. But if you're a single person, that £90 a month would be more than 10% of your basic state pension. So I think that's really awful. It's a very good argument for raising the pension. It's a very good argument for giving people a slightly better way of life. The reality on all this stuff is that this is quite scary for people. When you get up in the morning and when you get out of bed, it's the warmest you're going to be all day. That's not nice. That's not sensible and that's not reasonable. So there you go. What the Scottish government are currently saying they're going to do, they say that no more than 5% of households in Scotland should be living in poverty by 2040. What the hell is that? No one should be living in poverty in Scotland, England, or any damn where. This is the real truth, isn't it? Guys, right. Oh my goodness. So, Alan, yeah. Oh, that's awful, mate. Oh, right, I see. You get the pips and okay. It's tight. You could say that. It's tight. A lot of people are living in very tight situations. Now, I tried to find out a little bit more about what's happening in England, because that specific story is about Scotland. But in England, they're now saying, well, 1.7 million pensioners in England are living in poverty. Can you believe that? This is not a third world country. This is a first world civilized country where people have been getting benefits of all kinds really since the Second World War, when we suddenly discovered a reasonably welfare state. And yet 1.7 million pensioners, according to the Labour Party shadow chancellor, and according to me, I think, on the research I've done, 1.7 million pensioners are living in poverty. That's a ludicrous number of people. That's a ridiculous number, and that just shouldn't be happening. What the hell are people thinking and doing when we get that situation? We're looking at this fuel poverty thing again. They're saying, or the Labour Party currently says, that 1 million people in the UK live in fuel poverty. I suspect it's more. Don't you really think about that? So I want to know, on Retired People's Club, I would like to know more about people who are living in fuel poverty, or who are living in poverty. You have to be a pensioner. I'm sorry, guys, for poor younger people. But if you're an older person and you are hard up all the time, you have to make that choice. Right, yeah. You have to make that choice of being warm or of eating, or vice versa. If you're doing that, I'd love to hear from you. All the address information is at the back of the programme. Let's just go back to what Alan said there, because that's interesting. So he makes sure he uses any money off coupons for anything that they want and need. It's tight, says our friend Alan Nabbit, and tight is not what we want. What we want is a reasonable way of life for older people. And older people like me, like you, deserve a decent way of life, and Mrs. May, I'm afraid, really doesn't do it for me. Well, no. But in reality, the government style, I think austerity has really been, oh, can I say this? Yeah, I'm brave. Austerity has really been a kind of master design to kind of try and reduce the standard of living in the UK so that people live ultimately in the same way that people live in some third world countries. Not well. We're certainly a lot better off than most countries, let's be honest. But the reality is not what we expect. When we look at some of our European neighbours, and the one that always springs to mind with me is Denmark, when we look at them, well, they don't have poverty. They don't have fuel poverty or any other kind of poverty. If you fall on hard times in Denmark, they kind of rescue you guys, which is what I really think we ought to do. That's the point, isn't it? See where we go with that one. So I'd like to hear from people who are suffering poverty as pensioners. If you're hard up, tell me what your life is like. If you'd like to talk on the phone to me, I'll be glad to hear from you. The phone number is on the end screen that's coming up in a couple of minutes. If you like what we talk about, if you find what we talk about interesting, then please do get in touch. I would love to hear from you. I'm sorry about this, but I have to do stuff, as you know. So there we go. I don't think that enough people pay attention to wrinkly old folks like us in reality, and I don't think that we get enough attention. It's one of the reasons why I've started this channel, is to try and open up some of the dark and dirty corners in our society where people live and have a hard time. If you're a pensioner who's in East Anglia, for instance, then I would gladly come out and film you and film your way of life. Lifestyle? You probably don't have one, guys. Let's actually get out there in the world and start making a difference by waving big flags and telling people how people live, how pensioners live, how ordinary old folks who have worked bloody hard all their lives get treated when they get old. The guys now who are young and are, as we all know, when we're young, we're going to live forever. Those guys would get, I think, a rude shock, a rude awakening on how hard it is to be an old person in the UK in the wonderful era of Mrs. Theresa May. Okay, I'm Chris Gosling. This is Retired People's Club. Keep in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook. Give us a like if you like what we say. Join in, get involved, talk to us, give us a phone call, give us an email, send me a message on Twitter or send me a message on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, we're going to go now. I'm going to go and drink my cup of coffee. Okay, so here we go. Let's go with the little end screen. It's got all the contact details. As I say, give us a like if you like us.